It really was a turning point for the whole documentary. We couldn't finish our story. Apex, the story of the Hypercar, was a film that took like 6 years. 6 years to kind of put together. And we were very much young and ambitious, is the best way to put it. We're a very small company, but we're mercenaries in the fact that we work for many different people, and our work is not necessarily credited to us all the time, but that's how we make our money. But we realized that in 2013, I believe, we have relationships and contacts with all the major manufacturers. We had NDAs in place for a lot of those manufacturers to capture a lot of their prototypes of those early hypercars. We realized we were in a unique situation that we could tell a story that no one else had access to because of all of the relationships we had. Koenigsegg was obviously going to be the primary subject matter just because of the level of access they were willing to give us. And at that time, I recognized that Koenigsegg was taking a lot of risks. It was a big gamble for them to expand their production and go into multiple model lines. And the relationship with Christian at that point had made maybe 5 or 6 trips to Engelholm at that point, that he was starting to recognize that we could actually tell his story in a way that wasn't going to upset him. And he was shy. He was shy away from media and press based on what Clarkson did with Top Gear and some of the issues that they had with the tests on the Top Gear test track. And those results really do have effects on manufacturers and decisions they make. We knew at that point that Koenigsegg was working on a perfect power to weight ratio car, the 1-to-1. We recognized that could be the hero car. It was an interesting story more than anything else. And obviously it had the performance figures to really to be in that spot. And you look at Porsche, though they are a big multinational corporation, there's only a handful of engineers, much like Koenigsegg. It's no different. From the outside, though, from a macro point of view, they are a massive operation to put those cars together. McLaren, same thing. Small team, but McLaren has this name, this reputation, just as Ferrari does, of many years of building high-end performance cars. But Koenigsegg is like, the Swedish company, whatever. It was just perfect for that story. Several years, kind of skipping ahead, 5 years of kind of documenting that progress with all those manufacturers. And they're all kind of happening at different times, and it was kind of on the back burner as to when we would actually shoot stuff. And this is at the time of the internet with Jalopnik and everyone kind of going off on Nürburgring lap times, more so than it is now. But back then it was like that was everything, Nürburgring lap times. It was always the intention of Koenigsegg to go set a lap record at the Nürburgring. And I don't know if this is ever known to be public, but they had prototypes running around that was not the 1-to-1. And they had, I don't know, there's like 14 segments on the Nordschleife. Like every track has segments. But with all the testing on the industry pools and the public days they went out, you can't always nail a perfect lap. But they realized that after all their lapping and all their best segments put together, they were looking at like a 6:20 lap time, which is absurd. Even now, I know like Porsche with the GT2 RS MR with Manthey Racing is like 6:40 as a production car. 6:20, 6:25 from Koenigsegg in their segment times, their best segment times put together. It's like absurd. And the idea of like using GPS around the track to set the car up for different corners, it's just so like out of this world for something Christian to think of, and stuff I know that Porsche and McLaren all want to do, but they don't have the resources. They can't get the approval of the board to get there. But Koenigsegg, it's him. Like he can make those decisions. He could do it. But then there was that death at the Nürburgring. A spectator died out of VLN. It was a VLN. It wasn't the 24, I believe. I think it was Jan, who's part of the GT Academy, flipped, went into the spectators and killed someone. It really was a turning point for the whole documentary. We couldn't finish our story. Like Nürburgring was always the place for Koenigsegg to really set the standards. Like, nope, we went as far as we could go. Nothing was restraining us except for the tires that Michelin was providing. That was the only restraint they really had, if you really thought about it, because they weren't a tire manufacturer, so they were limited by the tires. But then they couldn't tell their story. They couldn't set their lap time. And even going to Nürburgring management, I know it wasn't entirely told in the story, but it was hinted at in the movie. It's $60,000 to rent the Nordschleife. It's a lot of money. Even when Koenigsegg had the money and they were willing to rent the track, they wouldn't rent the track to them. They wouldn't rent the track to them. Why? Who knows, right? Who knows if it was political with the Volkswagen Group or whatever it may be. Lamborghini was setting lap times at that point. Let's not forget that with the SV. So who knows, it was political, whatever it was, but we couldn't really finish our story. We that was the whole point. The idea of like going out and setting this lap time with this one-to-one, with the one-to-one, to really show that, you can have these small, narrowly focused manufacturers going out and producing great vehicles. Pagani, Koenigsegg, and there are others out there, but we had to come up with an alternative. Reality is that as much as I think a lot of people talk about Nürburgring, everyone knows Spa's the track. If you want speed and you want really something that really is a great flowing track with a great history and something that's dangerous and has precedent, Spa is the next best option. Nürburgring's kind of been played up because of the stats, like 144 turns, 11 miles, whatever it may be. Like, it's it's massive, that's crazy, it's a toll road, but Spa is the track. So we convinced Koenigsegg that we got to try something. Spa was more challenging in terms of availability. It's rented out pretty much every day of the year. So we actually had to do our filming and our potential lap time record basically during a track day. We as a production company had to buy the rights to film for the 1 hour that they had to do the lap time. It's like $25,000 just to say that we're filming at Spa. It's outrageous, the rackets that these tracks have, but at the end of the day I understand they have to make money or these tracks won't exist, so you pay it. They did testing for an entire day. Right when we're about to do our lap time, we're informed that the car is too loud. And we tried to come up with every solution we could come out with, and actually what ended up happening is like basically telling the track officials, don't worry, the car is not as loud anymore. We've done some work to it. Koenigsegg has done some work to it. Car's not as loud. We're going to go out and try for the lap record. There was no work done to the car. Car was exactly the same. We're not going to change stuff just to meet some sound meter. And at Spa, they have sound meters, just like Lugano and Sitka, they have sound meters around the track. Trip one of those sound meters, you're getting basically a black flag to come on in. The idea with Robert was basically like, trip him. It is what it is. Just finish the one lap. You only have one lap to do it. They realized that we were trying to do that. So they basically walked out on track and wouldn't let him finish the lap. But he had it. It's the story. And a documentary doesn't always have to have a good ending. I think looking back at the doc now, and I can't watch it after 150 different revisions of that fucking film, but I look back at it and I think there'd be no better way to end the story. Koenigsegg has always kind of gotten the shaft. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that have not gone in his favor. And it kind of really, that movie really depicts kind of all the challenges that Christian as a person, Christian as a man with a family that depends on that company. And I'm not just saying his immediate family, but everyone that works there, it's his family. They depend on it. That town, there's like a town spirit, like Maranello with Ferrari 50, 60 years ago. We didn't dive deep into the backstory of where Koenigsegg came from in the final product of the film, because it wasn't that sexy. It wasn't something that would stimulate our audience. Not to say we didn't capture it, not to say that we didn't investigate it. We know his background. He was a self-made man. It wasn't family money. He had a dream, and he was going to do everything he could to get to that point. It's a true story. They were making wood flooring. That was what they were doing before they were building race cars and hypercars and all that stuff. And they built different variations of everything. But it was always a means to an end, making money in order to support the vision of building the best cars in the world. And it's the reason why you have people from all across Europe and all across the world. I know Ford engineers that have gone over to Koenigsegg. I know Porsche engineers. I know people from around the world that have dropped everything and gone to work for Christian because they believe in his vision. And they realize that he's not just a great leader, he's a visionary. And he's willing to listen. I've never seen him really outrageously upset with anyone on his team. His team looks up to him. It's a team environment which everyone is involved in, and then he kind of focuses it, says, this is the direction we're going on. I love all these ideas, but this is where we should go. And one day I think there should be like a Harvard Business Review story on how he manages that company, because it's unique and it's different. I wouldn't change how the film was put together. I wouldn't have waited more to tell the story. I felt it was exactly how the story should have ended. It was a moment in time. I hope that in 30, 40 years, people maybe will look back at it as a reference where we were starting to have the conversation of, this is how much power you have in a car, and if that much of it is electric power, that's a good thing. That's where we were 5 years ago, 4 years ago, right? The idea The electric motor is helping facilitate this combustion motor to do more, right? It was helping support the bigger picture. And as that starts creeping up to be more electric and less gas powered, that's kind of where we're heading right now in the era that we're in. And I want to have that film stand the test of time so that in 20, 30 years, people will look back at it and it's like, oh my God, there was a time where we were debating that electric power was not good. Are you kidding me? For anyone that thinks electric motors are bad for the automotive industry, you're out of your mind. We need that technology. And when were we ever in a point as a society and as people to hold back on new ideas? It's done.
Shrewd negotiation starts with finding the right car, and the best way to do that is with Autotempest.com. Autotempest allows you to compare the results from Craigslist nationally with all the top listing sites. So visit Autotempest.com today and see where your next dream car is hiding.